Morozko, or Father Frost. Once there lived an old man and an old woman. The old man had his daughter, and the old woman had her own daughter. The old woman pampered her daughter, doted on her, and made the old man's daughter do all the work, scolding her for everything, abusing her, and not giving her enough food. The girl did all the work she was ordered. She did everything quite brilliantly. People would look at her and could hardly praise her enough. But when they saw the old woman's daughter, they would say, "Here she is. She cannot weave or spin. She is idle and lazy." The old woman became even angrier and even more quarrelsome. Consumed with rage and jealousy, she could think of nothing else but to kill her husband's daughter. One day, the old man went to the market in the town. The evil old woman colluded with her daughter. "Now we will do in this hateful girl." The old woman called to the girl and ordered her, "Go to the wood and bring some brushwood." "We have quite enough brushwood," the girl answered. The old woman started crying and stamping her feet. She fell on the girl together with her daughter and pushed her out of the hut. The girl saw that there was nothing to be done, and she went to get the wood. The frost was crackling, the wind was howling, and there was a heavy snowstorm. The old woman with her daughter were warm in the hut, and said to each other, "The hateful girl will not come back. She will freeze to death in the woods." So the girl went into the forest, sat under a thick fir tree, and did not know where to go and what to do. Suddenly she heard crackling noises, like the crackling of ice and frost. It was Morozko, riding through the fir grove and birch forest, and skipping from tree to tree, the snow crunching. He descended from the fir tree and said, "How do you do, fairy maiden? Why have you come to my wood on such a dreadfully cold night?" Morozko listened to her explanation and said, "No, fairy maiden, you were not sent here for brushwood." "Well, if you've come to my wood, then show me how good of a mistress you are." She was given a tow and distaff. "Spin threads out of this tow, weave the cloth, and sew me a shirt out of that cloth." Then he left. The girl never questioned or objected, and started to work at once. When her fingers were frozen, she would breathe on them to warm them up, and work on. The whole night she did not stop working. She only thought of one thing: how to sew the shirt. In the morning she heard the crackling noises near the fir tree again, and knew that Morozko was back. He looked at the shirt and was very pleased. He praised her. "Well done, fairy maiden. You worked well." Then Morozko brought forth a large trunk, put it in front of the girl, and said, "The work fits the reward." He then put on a warm fur coat on the girl, tied a patterned kerchief around her head, and led her to the road. "Goodbye, fairy maiden. Here you will find good people to help you get home." As he said that, he disappeared as if he had never been there. At that time the old man came back home. "Where is my daughter?" he asked. "She went to the wood for brushwood and did not come back." The old man was anxious for his daughter, so instead of unharnessing the horse, he drove towards the wood, and after a while he saw his daughter, standing near the road, well dressed and merry. The relieved old man seated her in his sledge, loaded Morozko's trunk full of presents, and took her home. The evil old woman with her daughter were sitting at the table, eating pies, and said, "Well, she surely will not come back home alive. The old man will return her body." However, the dog was barking near the stove, and it spoke and said, "Bow wow! Bow wow! The old man's daughter is going to bring expensive presents. No one will marry the old woman's daughter. The old woman gave pies to the dog, and when that failed, beat her with the poker. Shut up, you nasty hound. Say it. The old woman's daughter will be married, and the old man's daughter will be brought back dead. But the dog repeated again and again, the old man's daughter will bring presents, and the old woman's daughter will never be married. Then they heard the squeak at the gates. The door to the hut was opened, and the girl came in, well dressed and rosy-cheeked, and some of the townspeople brought in a large trunk following her, decorated with patterns reminiscent of frost. The old woman and her daughter rushed to examine the trunk. They started to take out and marvel at the wonderful clothes. They laid them out on the benches and incredulously asked, "Who gave you such expensive presents?" As soon as the old woman learned that Morozko had given the presents to the girl, she began to bustle about and wrap up her daughter warmly. She gave her a bundle with some pies, and told the old man to take her to the woods. "I bet she'll bring back 2 such trunks." The old man took the old woman's daughter to the wood, and left her under the high fir tree. She stood, looking around, scowling and griping. Why is that Morozko not here yet? Where has the lazy so-and-so disappeared to? Then she heard the crackle of frost. Morozko was riding through the fir grove and the birch forest and skipping from tree to tree, snow crunching. He jumped down from the fir tree and asked, "Why have you come to me, fairy maiden? Don't you know that? I came for expensive presents like the ones you gave the old man's girl." Morozko smiled and said, "Well, you show me first what a good mistress you are. Knit me some mittens." He gave her a knitting needle and a ball of wool, and left. The old woman's daughter threw the knitting needles into the snow, pushed the ball of wool around with her foot. Look what that old fool came up with. Who ever heard of such a thing as to knit in such dreadful cold? I would get my fingers frostbitten. In the morning there came the cracks and crunches, and Morozko appeared. "Well, fairy maiden, why don't you show me how you coped with my task?" The old woman's daughter rushed at him. "What? Do you think I have done your work, you old noodle? Are you blind? Can't you see? I'm chilled to the bones waiting for you here. I'm half dead." "Well, the work fits the reward," Morozko said. She shook like his beard as a huge snowstorm with a blizzard began. All the paths and all the roads were covered, and Morozko disappeared as if he had never been there. The old woman's daughter stumbled along without knowing the road, and came to a deep ravine. She tumbled in, and there she was covered with snow. In the morning the old woman shook the old man awake, very early, and ordered him to go to the wood to collect her daughter. She herself started to bake pies. The dog was sitting under the couch and barking. "Bow wow! Bow wow! The old woman's daughter will not come back from the wood." The old woman threw pies at the dog and lashed at her with the poker. "Shut up, nasty! Eat your pie, and never say such things again. Better yet, say that the old woman's daughter is going to bring expensive gifts, and the old man's daughter will never find a fiancé." The dog ate the pie, but repeated again, "Bow wow! Bow wow! Bow wow! The old man's daughter will certainly marry, and the old woman's daughter will never come back from the wood." The old woman was startled. What if something bad is going to happen to my daughter? What if they lose the expensive gifts on the road? I will run and follow the old man. She put on a fur coat and ran to the wood. The snowstorm was howling and whirling even stronger. The whole road was covered in snow. The evil woman lost her way, and she too was covered in snow. The old man was out looking for the old woman's daughter for some time and could not find her. When he came back, his wife was not there. He gathered the neighbors. They all started to look for the old woman and her daughter. They looked and looked. They dug through all the snowdrifts, and still did not find them, and the old man lived together with his daughter. When spring came, a fine young man, a smith from the smithy, asked for her hand in marriage. They had a merry wedding, and lived in love and harmony, and so they live now.